Having been around for nearly 3 decades, Warcraft has seen a lot of changes in both style and storytelling. Some of it has been for the better, and some of it for the worse. Released in late 1994 for MS-DOS, Warcraft decided to expand on Dune 2's formula of building your army and destroying the enemy base, while also adding in new elements such as several new mission types. Though most of the story has been retconned at this point, both the human and orc campaigns, which show 2 different sequences of events, laid a lot of groundwork. The story and the world would be expanded upon in future titles, eventually becoming the World of Warcraft we all know today. The game is severely clunky by today's standards, but I think it's still worth looking into. If you like this content, subscribe for more. While the first mission of each campaign is just a tutorial, let's talk about the humans for a minute. The player starts off as a regent given a plot of land to develop, serving under King Lane Rin III in the Kingdom of Azeroth. This kingdom would later be renamed to Stormwind, with the name Azeroth taking the title for the greater world. The orcs first appeared 10 years prior as small raiding parties that would burn down villages and kill anything that moved. Despite their best efforts, no cleric or scholar could figure out where these monsters came from or how they came to Azeroth's shores. The only certainty was that they came and went from the eastern swamps. Recently, the attacks have become bolder and more organized. As more troops are sent to the borderlands to protect any nearby settlements, the returning scouts have confirmed that a ruthless orc named Blackhand has rallied the orcs under one banner, with one goal in mind: the destruction of Azeroth. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Originally from the planet Draenor, the orcs lived as a multitude of different clans across their planet. As the orcs warred with each other, a group of warlocks discovered a small rift. After stabilizing the rift and sending a few scouts through it, they discovered a strange and unknown world. The warlocks convinced the various clans to cease their warring, hoping the prospect of a common foe would unite them. After the initial raiding parties brought back reports of their conquest in these new lands, the orcs constructed the Dark Portal. They launched an attack on the castle to the north. Though the orcs expected to crush any resistance, they were driven back by mounted knights, leaving them to retreat through the portal once more. Over the years since their failed invasion, the orcs bickered over whether the portal should be closed or if they should try again to take Azeroth. The fighting only stopped when a power-hungry orc named Blackhand seized control of the clans to create a single, unstoppable horde. If you like this content, subscribe for more. As the orc attacks grow more brazen, King Lane sends out more of his forces to reinforce and defend the towns along the borderlands. Towns such as Grand Hamlet are under a constant threat of raiding, while scouts report the orc numbers are rapidly swelling. With the orcs moving against the town, it is the player's job to roam around the map and deal with any of the orc units they encounter, having to contend with ranged archers joining the orc ranks, as well as any warriors they find. Grand Hamlet itself may not be a name that World of Warcraft players may recognize, but following the rebuilding of Stormwind, Grand Hamlet was also rebuilt. The town would be renamed, however, to Darkshire, which lies in northeastern Duskwood. If you like this content, subscribe for more. With the humans using various strategies to attack the orcs in small numbers, and flee before any reinforcements can arrive, Blackhand is starting to find the humans more and more bothersome, sending the player off to crush any opposition near a small outpost in the Swamp of Sorrow, which could possibly be Kairos. The borderlands themselves are not a rigidly defined area. Instead, the term refers to the area between the orc lands of the Swamp of Sorrows, Black Morass, and Blackrock Spire to the east, and the human lands of Elwynn Forest, Northshire, and Stormwind to the west. Although no official location has been labeled as the Borderlands, it likely encapsulated eastern Duskwood, western Swamp of Sorrows, as well as the Deadwind Pass to the north of Medivh's Tower, Karazhan. If you like this content, subscribe for more. With Grand Hamlet defended, the time has come for the humans to go on the offensive. On the west side of the Swamp of Sorrows lies the Orcish outpost of Kairos, which was used for defending against any human incursions into the swamp, and was a place to launch any raiding parties into southeast Elwynn. Hoping that the destruction of the outpost would lead to a lasting peace around Grand Hamlet, the player is tasked with ensuring that any orcs there are dealt with, and that the outpost itself is reduced to rubble. The Orcs would ultimately not rebuild Kairos, which lay just to the southeast of what is now Splinter Spear Junction, and instead their forces would move west to the town of Stonard, deeper in the swamp. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Pushing further into the west, the humans of Grand Hamlet have been growing stronger. Tasked with destroying the town, Blackhand sends the player to an outpost with a small force to raise an army. Along with this, he specifies that no prisoners are to be taken. Except, wait a moment. We've already seen the Orcs' invasion of Grand Hamlet from the human side, with the humans emerging victorious. But now, seeing it from the Orcs' perspective, Grand Hamlet is destroyed, so which set of events occurred? Warcraft's campaigns both follow their own timelines in which their side is victorious over the other, with the two timelines being merged later to create the events that would become known as the First War. As we'll see later, these discrepancies are not just exclusive to which battles are won or lost. For the time being, however, we'll continue to just see how either timeline plays out, and then bring them together to paint a picture of what actually happened in the Warcraft canon. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Ah, the Dead Mines, a name many Alliance players will remember from when they first started running dungeons. 20 months prior, the King's Champion, Sir Anduin Lothar, led an expedition down into the Dead Mines in order to search for a lost book called the Tome of Divinity. Lothar's forces had encountered resistance within the mines, and no one from their expedition had been seen since then. Most of Lothar's forces were killed during the battle, with him and his remaining soldiers taken prisoner and awaiting their execution. The abbot of Northshire Abbey had a vision of Lothar, captured, broken, and pleading for assistance. With knowledge that he was still alive, King Lane orders a rescue party into the mines to find him and his men and bring them back alive. After fighting through a mine full of ogres and confronting their leader, Turok, both Lothar and the Tome of Divinity are recovered and brought back to Northshire Abbey to heal. If you like this content, subscribe for more. The humans aren't the only ones who have a problem with Turok. Blackhand's daughter, Griselda, fled from her father's watch and joined forces with the ogres in the Dead Mines. Infuriated, Blackhand orders the extermination of everyone in the mines, including Griselda. If you haven't caught on by now, both campaigns actually mirror each other. Though the story is different for each mission, the goals and gimmicks of each mission is generally the same. For each mission to destroy an outpost or make your way through a dungeon, the opposite campaign will have a similar mission. As the series became more narrative-focused, with campaigns no longer happening concurrently, this was something that would be dropped in favor of each mission being unique. The Dead Mines also serves as an example of Warcraft's innovation of mission design, sending the player through a map filled with enemies with only a small force and no base to construct more units. That means if the player makes a mistake while progressing through the level, the consequences are much more costly. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Looking to take back the Borderlands, the armies of Stormwind head southwest to drive out the Orcs that have pushed into Elwynn Forest. As we start to near the halfway point of the game, we can take a brief diversion to look at how the game actually plays. While being praised at the time of its release, the game is very hard to play in 2023. The game is incredibly slow, taking a long time to get anything done, whether it's constructing the buildings, building your army, or just getting anywhere on the map. Slowing things down even further, the player can only select a maximum of 4 units at a time, and cannot set any unit groups to quickly reselect them. With melee units especially, units will often stand still if there is nothing near them, meaning destroying each enemy base is a lot more hands-on and taking care of every building. A lot of the issues can be explained as simply what the technology of the time could handle, but as home computers became more powerful, more quality of life upgrades were made with each new game release. If you like this content, subscribe for more. While returning from the Dead Mines, the player's forces are diverted north to the Red Ridge Mountains. Although an orc encampment had been established in the area, it now lies under siege from human forces. Rushing to the aid of their fellow orcs, the player must both defend the encampment from the ongoing attack and seek out their stronghold in the northern section of the mountains. The human stronghold likely refers to Stonewatch, which was claimed by the Blackrock clan during the First War, and remains under orc control well after the Third War. Additionally, in World of Warcraft, a high road in the eastern Red Ridge connects between the Swamp of Sorrows in the south towards the direction of the Dark Portal, and Blackhand's Seat of Power at Blackrock Spire in the north. Perhaps this road was used to avoid any human forces down below, but there's no way to know if that was the intention behind it. If you like this content, subscribe for more. The Orcs aren't the only enemy Stormwind must worry about. A band of humans that has allied themselves with the Orcs must also be dealt with. As this group moves in on Northshire Abbey, the monks call for the aid of their king. Once the abbey has been defended, the soldiers of Stormwind track the traitors back to their encampment and lay siege to it, ending the rebellion. Years later, Northshire Abbey would become an important place for World of Warcraft, serving as the human starting area for the player to quest in and get used to the game before they are sent off into the wider world. Northshire Abbey is also a small thread that would lead into the larger concepts of human culture and especially religion. While only healing priests are trained at the moment in the teachings of the light, their magic would later be used by warriors during the Second War to become the first paladins. If you like this content, subscribe for more. In the words of the Orcs, the humans of Sunnyglade have become fat and lazy with their prosperity. The town is ripe for the taking, with their army unaware of an approaching Orc invasion, so it's up to the player to not only destroy the town, but also secure the area for the Horde. Notably, the Orcs are interested in a tower within the town, which they hope to use to study how the humans' magics are created. Whatever it is they discovered is unknown, but considering the player unlocks Warlocks in the next mission, it must have been useful. As for where exactly the tower lies, there are a few towers that can be found around Elwynn Forest, but the most likely candidate is the Tower of Azora, located in the eastern section of the map. Coincidentally, a few geographical features can provide evidence of this, as the river running along the middle of the map is similar to the river separating Elwynn and Duskwood. Many of these early locations were never really incorporated into World of Warcraft, so we can only really speculate whether they were left standing or ground down under the Orcish war machine. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Sunnyglade is in ruins, and its citizens were either slaughtered or taken prisoner. Just north of the Orc encampment, the survivors have been rounded up and are being kept in a pen, soon to be shipped elsewhere to work as slaves. Before the player can actually get to work on building their base, they first need to locate where the Orcs are and free the workers. Since the player does not start with any workers or gold, at least one villager must be saved in order to advance, otherwise the player must restart the mission and try again. The concept is a unique way to start the level, forcing the player to use a small force to raid a section of the enemy base, then returning later to destroy the rest of it. While it can break the monotony of each level, the workers can die too quickly, as archers on the other side of the wall can kill them in one hit, making restarting once or twice a likely possibility if you aren't fast enough to get one to safety. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Blackhand has been growing too arrogant of your victories, and it's time there was a change in leadership. Luckily, Blackhand left an opening in his personal troops, which the player can exploit. A key outpost in the Black Morass serves as a pivotal center for supply lines between the front lines and Blackrock Spire. With the destruction of this outpost, Blackhand's power will wane and allow the player to seize control of the Horde. With the outpost destroyed, the Shadow Council that rules the Horde from behind the Warchief saw how weak Blackhand had become, but also how swiftly the player rose to power. Ordering Blackhand's assassination, the player is then put in control of the Horde and entrusted to end the war. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Another dungeon crawl. The villainous warlock Medivh has begun to drain the land of its energy and harnessing it for some terrible scheme. Entering his Tower of Karazhan, the player's limited army must contend with spiders, slimes, skeletons, elementals, and demons summoned by Medivh as they make their way to him and kill him. Entrusted by the Tearsguard Council with great arcane power, Medivh stands as the guardian of Azeroth. A personal friend of King Lane, Medivh was once someone that Stormwind looked to for wisdom and protection. However, the power coursing through Medivh twisted his mind and drove him mad, leading him to seek forbidden knowledge, and resulting in him coming across a strange other world home to the Orcish Horde. Later accounts of Medivh's death would have only a select few warriors entering Karazhan and putting an end to him. As a personal blow, the warriors that were forced to make the hard decision to stop his madness were his lover Garona, his apprentice Khadgar, and his childhood friend Lothar. If you like this content, subscribe for more. With the player now uplifted to Warchief, the first task that must be completed is a rescue mission into human lands. Taking a small force, the Orcs venture into Northshire Abbey to rescue the Horde's best spy, Garona. Garona had been carefully studying the humans and their magics, but was discovered and imprisoned within the Abbey. With the valuable information she has acquired, the war against King Lane would be swiftly ended with her aid. Northshire Abbey is raided by orcs and burned to the ground to cover up the secrets of what happened there. With Garona recovered and our magical secrets given over to the warlocks, the orcs' victory is all but assured. If you like this content, subscribe for more. At this point in the game, both campaigns begin their march towards victory. For the humans, this means pushing deep into the heart of Orc lands, the Black Morass. Here, the orcs have made several strongholds which must be wiped out. Unbeknownst to the humans, further into the southern Black Morass lies the source of the Orcish horde. The Dark Portal still stands tall among the lush swampland, but its presence has been having a tangible effect on the surrounding region. The land around the portal has been dying slowly, becoming more corrupted by fell magic. Ferns and grasses would wither, and local fauna would become sick and weak. On the other side of the portal, a similar process had occurred before the Dark Portal was ever constructed, turning the savage Tanan jungle into the barren hellscape known as Hellfire Peninsula. All of this information has been given to us in later games. Instead, in the game manual for Orcs and Humans, the portal is implied to be making the land sick and swamp-like, instead of turning it into the wasteland that is the Blasted Lands. If you like this content, subscribe for more. With new magical secrets secured, the orcs now move to take Elwynn Forest. Two outposts pose a threat to the security of their forces within the area, and so both of them must be destroyed. Admittedly, I don't have much more to say about this mission, so here's a montage of my armies getting blasted with catapults. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Tragedy has struck the human kingdom of Stormwind, with a letter reaching the player that King Lane has been assassinated by the treacherous Garona. His last command was to uplift you to the war leader to finally end this unceasing war. In retaliation, the Temple of the Damned has been chosen for siege, as it remains as one of Blackhand's darkest seats of power. Only the bravest of knights agreed to undertake the mission of dismantling the temple, with any other reinforcements too terrified to approach. This Temple of the Damned is actually the first of many that would later be constructed, but this is also the only one built during the First War. It was here that the orcs would make sacrifices to their gods, and where necrolytes would be recruited to purge the humans from the land. The great altars where the orcs would sacrifice blood and gold would not be enough to save the temple, as nothing of it remained once the humans were finished with it. And to those wondering, no, this is not the sunken temple in the Swamp of Sorrows. If you like this content, subscribe for more. With the taste of victory on their tongues, the orcs grow more bold, pushing directly into the heart of human land. Spies have scouted a training encampment nearby, and while the soldiers there are not expecting an attack, nor have they likely seen combat before, the orcs decide they should prove to be a good fight. Destroying such an encampment would not only greatly weaken Stormwind's forces, but also bolster the player's position as war chief. Since Warcraft is such an early game in its genre, the innovations that it made at the time were great for maintaining player engagement. However, the vast majority of missions boil down to build an army and destroy the enemy base, leaving all but the dungeon crawl missions feeling very similar to one another. This meant that every mission would spend 20 minutes building a base and an army, and another 10 to dismantle the enemy base. The time spent building that army increases as you progress throughout the game, not because you're building a larger army, but because the enemy catapults tend to sneak in and destroy large sections of the army when I'm not looking, and I swear to God if it happens just one more time. All that stands between the armies of Stormwind and Blackrock Spire are the twin cities of Rockard and Stonard, which may be somewhat confusing for World of Warcraft players for a very good reason. During Warcraft, the map is much smaller, encompassing only the southern section of the Eastern Kingdoms. Additionally, locations such as Westfall and Duskwood had not been thought of at this point. While the given map in Warcraft does its job of guiding the player to understanding general locations, it was not something that would work for World of Warcraft. Rockard and Stonard are two locations that would later move slightly in the game's world. Both of them serve as orcish strongholds, but no longer stand between Stormwind and Blackrock Spire. Stonard would instead move south and become a horde town in the Swamp of Sorrows, with Rockard being even further south, near the pass that allows players to move between the swamp and the Blasted Lands. After Rockard was rebuilt, it became the territory of the Dreadmaul Ogres, earning it the name of Dreadmaul Hold. If you like this content, subscribe for more. If you don't know what happens in Goldshire, perhaps it's best left that way. Only 2 settlements stand between the Horde and Stormwind Keep. The destruction of Goldshire and Moonbrook will sever the king from his people. Goldshire is a town that human players will probably know, since it is generally their first stop after leaving Northshire Abbey, with the road north out of Goldshire leading directly to Stormwind City. The city serves as a crossroads between Stormwind to the north, Red Ridge Mountains to the east, and Westfall to the west. Moonbrook, on the other hand, is far more to the west in World of Warcraft. Many will remember it as the town just outside of the Dead Mines, filled with hostile Defias bandits, and would later become a place for refugees following the Cataclysm. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Blackhand's final stronghold is all that remains, and with his supply lines cut off and any reinforcements already dealt with, the final battle begins. With the destruction of Blackrock Spire, the Kingdom of Azeroth will be victorious. With the stronghold destroyed and Blackhand slain, the orcs bow before the might of the player. Returning home, the player is rewarded with the Crown of Stormwind as great festivities carry on for several days. People arrive from all over the kingdom to witness their new king, and the game leaves the player with the knowledge that the intricacies of court politics will be uncharted waters, but that you resolve to rule with the same just and fair hand that Lane had before you. The Dark Portal where the orcs originally arrived from Draenor will be a mission to hunt down another day to forever end the orc invasion. Victory for the people of Stormwind is a very joyous one as the forces of good triumph over evil. In truth, however, the events that really occurred were much worse for humanity. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Despite the humans managing to push all the way to Blackrock Spire, their attack would ultimately fail and they would be forced to retreat. The orcs would regroup their forces and their attack on Stormwind would be a bloody battle. Great white towers would crumble under the barrage of catapults, and soldiers would be cut down by countless warriors. Stormwind Castle was stained red with the blood of King Lane, and his body tossed into the moat. A great feast full of freshly roasted meat and rivers of wine followed the sacking of the capital, with the orcs now looking for other lands to conquer. The Shadow Council looks across the sea, while the Warlocks seek to experiment on the portal to claim more worlds. These myriad choices for conquest can hold off for the moment. The player deserves some time to put up their feet and enjoy their success. The first war ends with the victory for the Horde. If you like this content, subscribe for more. While the idea of having 2 separate timelines worked in Warcraft's favor, it did present problems by the time Warcraft 2 was being worked on. Elements of each campaign would be mixed to create what is now considered to be the First War. For the most part, each campaign happens as presented, with the orcs claiming victory in the few events where both sides of the conflict were shown. Following the death of Medivh, the forces of Stormwind are free to push north and take Blackrock Spire, but at the last minute they faltered. Instead, it was the orcs that claimed victory when they sacked Stormwind City. This prevents a starting point for Warcraft 2, with the orcish hordes moving north. Additionally, a number of characters were introduced in Warcraft 2 that were retroactively added into the First War. Many details were changed for the characters that were present in Warcraft, and with the addition of new characters, I'll wrap up some of the more important changes in the following videos. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Something that you might have picked up on is that King Lane dies twice throughout the game. During the human campaign, he is assassinated by Garona, while during the orc campaign, he lives long enough to be killed during the attack against Stormwind. In a way, both events are true, and serves as an example of how some stories from Warcraft were combined to create the First War. Rather than serve as an orc spy, Garona was an emissary sent to Medivh and eventually came to the court at Stormwind following his death. There, she gained the trust of King Lane and became a close ally. However, the Shadow Council gave her the order to kill Lane, and unable to resist their command, she stabbed her friend in the back, as his son, Varian Wrynn, watched from the shadows. As Garona wept over Lane's body, Stormwind was being sacked by the Horde, made all the easier in the confusion over their dead king. Although Lane does not live to see the defeat of the Orcs, his bloodline does continue, as Varian Wrynn would become the king of the Alliance. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Blackhand is the first villain introduced in Warcraft, and that has a lot of weight behind it, but that doesn't mean he was much of a character. He only really serves as a threat for the humans to rally against, and an obstacle for the player to dethrone, and take the Horde for themselves. Blackhand was mostly known for his brutality and battle tactics, and the story he was given later only adds to this fact, while also feeding into his own sense of ego. He was easily manipulated, and while he seemed to be the leader of the Horde during the First War, he became little more than a puppet for the Shadow Council. The legacy of Blackhand endures with his two sons, Rend and Maim, ruling over the Blackrock and offshoot Blacktooth Grin clans in Blackrock Spire. While many of the other clans would join the Horde that would become playable in World of Warcraft, the Blackrock clan believed them to be weak and established their own Dark Horde. If you like this content, subscribe for more. When we first see Lothar in-game, we are rescuing him from the Dead Mines. After that, he is never mentioned again except for in the game manual. The manual mostly talks about his relationship to the king as his champion, but not about where he was during the First War. The player manages to free Lothar and then leads a number of attacks against the Horde, killing Medivh and becoming the new king of Stormwind. This unnamed player character is just referred to as the Defender of the Crown, but it makes much more sense if the player is actually Lothar. Assuming we play as someone else when we rescue Lothar, then it would be Lothar that leads the king's armies against the Orcs. Many of the player's achievements are given to Lothar, such as slaying Medivh, and he is the one that becomes the leader of the Stormwind survivors, traveling north to Lordaeron to seek aid for his people, and create the Alliance to fight back against the rampaging Horde that destroyed his homeland. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Unlike the human counterpart, the Orc player is definitively a named character. Doomhammer's story reworked a lot of what happened during the Orc campaign. Originally from the Blackrock clan, Doomhammer followed Blackhand through the portal and led his armies across the countryside. However, Doomhammer's rise to Warchief is much different than the game. He challenges Blackhand to an honorable fight to the death called Mok'Gara and emerged victorious. When it came time to save Garona, she wasn't willing to part with the knowledge of the location of the Shadow Council, and thus he tortured it out of her, then killed nearly every member of the Shadow Council. With his power secured, he led the Orcs to victory. Doomhammer is officially introduced in Warcraft 2, where he leads the Horde north and serves as Warchief heading into the Second War. If you like this content, subscribe for more. When the player is finally tasked with slaying Medivh, the only information that we are given is that he is a powerful warlock that is killing the land and summoning demons. As an excuse for the player to go and kill him as a one-note villain, that's all the justification they need, but the information in the game's manual reveals a much more interesting backstory, which has been improved upon over time. Medivh is the son of two powerful mages, and his body is overflowing with magic strong enough to kill his father, and put Medivh into a coma that lasted for years. When he finally woke up, his magic drove him insane, and in his madness he created the rift that allowed the Orcs into Azeroth. Perhaps the biggest change to Medivh's story was the introduction of Sargeras, the leader of all demons in World of Warcraft. In later retellings of the story, Medivh's madness is caused by a fraction of Sargeras' being implanted into Medivh before he was born. Over time, the corrupting influence of the Demon Lord led to Medivh working directly with the Orcs to open the Dark Portal. If you like this content, subscribe for more. While the Orcs started off as an independent army, this did not stay that way for long. Rumors swirled that the leader of the Shadow Council, Gul'dan, entered into some sort of pact with demons. This pact damned the race of Orcs and set the story in motion. Gul'dan made a deal with the demon Kil'jaeden to bind the Orcs to his will, convincing the Orcs to drink the blood of the pit fiend Manaroth. This turned the Orcs' brown skin into a fell green, and they were consumed with demonic bloodlust. After conquering all others on their homeworld, Gul'dan was contacted by Medivh to bring in the Horde and destroy Azeroth in exchange for godlike power hidden deep in the tomb of Sargeras. Sensing that Medivh was under attack, Gul'dan probed his mind for the tomb's location, only to fall into a coma with Medivh's death. Without Gul'dan to keep everyone in line, his puppet Blackhand and his Shadow Council were both slaughtered. Personally, I think Gul'dan is the first truly great villain introduced into Warcraft. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Khadgar plays a large role in Warcraft 2's expansion, but he is given some story in the first Warcraft. Khadgar was an apprentice of the Kirin Tor mages that was sent to study under Medivh with the intention of using him as a spy. Although hesitant at first, due to the twisting nature of Karazhan and Medivh's mood swings, he resolved himself and passed every test thrown at him. In time, he became Medivh's caretaker. However, as a shadow grew over Medivh, Khadgar discovered that his master was the one to open the Dark Portal. Along with Garona and Lothar, Khadgar confronted Medivh. Although the battle ended with Medivh's death, it had taken a toll on Khadgar. Before the Guardian's fall, he attempted to drain the life from Khadgar, leaving him a wizened and feeble old man. Although the powers of a Guardian would be lost to him, Khadgar would take up Atiash, the staff of his former master. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Oh, poor Garona. Initially, Garona is simply just a Horde spy, but her role would be expanded. Garona was a crossbreed of both Orc and Draenei blood. After her clan was wiped out, she was taken in by Gul'dan, who magically aged her and tortured her into becoming his ideal assassin. Having a talent for language, she learned the language of humans from their prisoners, and was sent to Karazhan as an emissary to Medivh. As the two of them grew closer, Garona saw the humans as a means to escape Gul'dan. Unfortunately, the Guardian was driven mad, and Garona was forced to aid in his death. During the battle, she saw visions of herself murdering King Lane, one of the only people to treat her with kindness. She fled from the tower to Stormwind, hoping to find safety. Yet, Gul'dan's hold in her mind was too strong, and only too late did Garona realize her mistake as she reluctantly carried out the assassination. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Some people may be wondering what happened to Garona following the First War, since she hardly appears in any of the other games. Her story was mostly told through comics, and there was quite a lot that happened. It all started with the birth of her son, Medan. And I think that's everything covered. If you like this content, subscribe for more. Not all of the Orcs drank from the blood of Manaroth. The Frostwolf clan refused to drink the blood and stood against Gul'dan and his fell magic. The chieftain, Durotan, and his mate, Draka, would rebel against Blackhand's horde, which would ultimately cost them their lives when the Shadow Council sent assassins after them. Few members of the Frostwolf clan survived, with Durotan's son, Goel, being sent off prior to the assassination. Since Warcraft 3 is meant to be a story of the Horde and Alliance coming together, the Horde needed a good-aligned Orc, leading to the introduction of Goel growing up to become the war chief Thrall. Durotan and Draka originally only served as backstory for Thrall, not even appearing in any of the games until Warlords of Draenor, but the story they tell gives shades of grey to the story of the Orcs during a time when they were simply evil. Their story, however, is not important to the grander tale. Instead, they tell us that not all Orcs are vicious monsters. And that's the end of the first Warcraft. Up next is Warcraft 2.